We should be good. We should be live, man, over here on Bleacher Report for our Wednesday midweek show. And this show's actually perfect. This show worked out perfectly because, it's the midweek. I'm trying to figure out what makes sense to do during the week. More draft stuff. I mean, we can always do draft stuff, and we're going to kind of do that today. But there's a couple of things. The first idea was, hey, let's go. Let's re-rank these needs. We got to do that. There's always like that build up to the draft, and there's always that show I end up doing where it's like, all right, let's just talk needs again. Now, it always doesn't make sense because you're also like, oh, don't draft needs. But then I'm like, all right, here, draft needs. I'm calling it draft needs, but it's also not really draft needs. It's just needs in general, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes any sense. You know how if you do like a mock draft, it'll tell you the needs on the side? I'm basically going to fill that out for us. All right. I'm going to make that list. Forget what they say. I'm going to give y'all the real list. Okay. The real needs list. But we also got some news. And this tied this show in perfectly because DeMarcus Walker reportedly was hosted by the Detroit Lions, the defensive end from the Chicago Bears. And that fired me up. When I saw that news, man, I was pumped. Okay. I don't think we've definitely done nothing specifically like on this player, like an individual show on DeMarcus Walker, but we've talked about him a lot. Okay. We've talked about him a ton as a player that I think would just make too much sense for the Lions in free agency. I thought early in the process, something might get done there, but you get these guys that come in for visits, the older players, the veterans, how much are they looking for money wise? There's a whole bunch of questions, how does the role fit? I think for him, having an opportunity to kind of sit down and figure out what the role would look like for DeMarcus Walker is the biggest thing because he was always kind of an interesting fit. Even coming out of the draft at his build, 6'4", 280 pounds. Is he a DN? Is he an interior player? What the heck is this guy? His length is okay, but it's not outstanding, but he's a former second round pick. So I think it's important to figure out like, all right, how does this match up? What we want to look to do defensively, how we want to play things stylistically. Does it make sense? Do you feel like you fit in here? All of that kind of stuff, so the fit makes sense to me. But I thought early in the process, like defensive end wise, it wasn't that strong in free agency just in general. But then as it cleared out really fast, and I'm looking through the names, I'm going through these guys, and nobody stands out. You're going through all the names, and you're like, man, like I'll be honest, I can't make a great case. Like if I could, we would have already talked about him because a lot of these players, like, for the most part, like if I could make a really strong case, like, oh, they have to go after him, we've done something on it, right? So it's like, all right, I could sell it. Maybe there's guys that I like parts of what they could bring to the table, but the full package just doesn't, it's not that intriguing, to be honest. And at this point, right, we're not looking at DeMarcus Walker as, hey, he's going to be that guy opposite of Hutchinson. Like, I don't have that expectation for him. Now, the statistical production for him makes some sense. This is, if you look at the numbers alone, you'd be like, all right, that's pretty darn good. And I'll actually throw the numbers on the screen before we start talking to this player a little bit more, because I've watched a lot of DeMarcus Walker. Of course, we played Chicago last season and the year before that when he was with Chicago. So we've had opportunities to see us go against him. And he hasn't done as well, in my opinion, against us as he has against like Green Bay or Minnesota. But he has shown the flexibility specifically. But it's more so to me about when you look at that defensive line last season, especially towards the end of the year. I'll throw up a little graphic on the screen here. Especially towards the end of the year for Chicago, that defensive line was a disaster. I mean, they had just everybody playing. They were just looking for, that is the wrong one. They're just looking for anybody that can bring something to the table, right? So they had a lot of young guys out there. They had a lot of guys trying to prove themselves on the field. And the one kind of stable piece outside of Sweat was DeMarcus Walker. He was the piece that was consistently on the field. That was DeMarcus Walker opposite. And it was always a weird spot for me with these guys because I didn't feel like they had any standout players, especially guys that were like hitting free agency this offseason where it's like, oh man, I'm in love with what this guy could bring to the table. But there was multiple players that I walked away like, I remember that. I remember what he brought. I remember because here's the difference, right? When we play the teams, I go through and I do my, like reports for the game. So I'm looking for players that stand out. I'm looking for guys that I feel like we can attack. So I do that for offensive line, defensive line. We play Chicago, for example. I'm looking for the players on the defensive line. And I'm like, yo, if you run it like this, or you run it towards this guy, just that kind of simplified, you're going to have success. Attack him in the run, that kind of thing. But whenever you went to Chicago and you talk about, okay, pass protection, who do you have to worry about? Who's going to be their pressure piece? He was never really a standout guy for me. All right. Obviously, a couple of years ago, we saw a really good season for Sweat when he got traded. But I mean, this past year, there's really never a guy. I always remember a Cowart at nose tackle, and I was like, man, he would make some flash plays. Like, it was like, all right, it wasn't as consistent, but you get some flashes in there. He could do some things. And then it was DeMarcus Walker. He was constantly the always guy that would, kind of come to mind, or the guy that I would have on my notes is like, DeMarcus Walker is kind of an interesting piece because he does some good things, right? He's gonna make some flash plays. He's gonna make some plays as a pass rusher. He's not an elite rusher by any means. And then against us, he didn't really feel his presence as much. But ultimately for the Lions and what they're looking for, I think if they found a way to bring in DeMarcus Walker, and I'm really going to be curious if they do pull this off, specifically to see kind of what the price point would be for this player, because obviously the Lions try not to spend a lot of money. So that's also a part of this as well. Like, I'm just going to be honest. Hey, the meeting could be like this, yo. Hey, we want you here, man. But look, we're going to be 100% real, dog. That deal's about to be a minimum type of deal. Look, we know you're more productive than that. It just is what it is. Like, you want to come here and win or not? Like, that's my sales pitch to the guy. And if you do, if you want to be a part of this and understand that, hey, what's your role here, right? Because what's your role is important for him. Look, man, you're probably not the starter. You may start in games depending on what injuries look like, but you're not the starter. You're not a better starter. When healthy, you're not better than Marcus Davenport. We understand you're not better than Levi at defensive end, but you could be a starter because of injuries, and your flexibility is key for us. We love the flexibility, and I actually think that DeMarcus Walker's skill set, right? I actually think his skill set fits who the Lions are and what they want to do with that defensive line and what I expect it to look like stylistically going forward and what we've already kind of seen flashes of. You think about those big DNs, right? Those guys that can play inside the tackles. Maybe they can line up in a 4-eye, which would mean an inside shade of an offensive tackle, maybe a 4 technique. They go head up with an offensive tackle. Not a full 3 technique, because you would have a nose tackle with you. You know, you go to some of those 3-4 type of fronts, like a guy that can line like that, or you kick him outside of the tackle. Now I'm putting him in a 6 technique, right? Maybe I have him head up on a tight end, and I got him go one-on-one there. It's like, can he dominate a tight end one-on-one, which is really where he finds a lot of success playing on that strong side of the line of scrimmage. And also keep in mind, he aligns as the right defensive end, which would be consistently opposite of how Aiden Hutchinson aligns. Now, we know Hutchinson will move around, but he's a right defensive end. Hutchinson typically aligns on the left side of the line of scrimmage, meaning that he's going to constantly get reps against your right tackle, right? That's where we try to get him the matchup, and we want to try to expose that right tackle. So he alignment-wise also makes sense there. But I think his physical build, 6'4", 280, 33-inch arms, which is fine. It just makes a lot of sense where he lines up, what he does well. I think what he's set to do really well is he's a slippery player. He's a slippery guy. He finds angles. He finds little pass rush creases to get to as a I don't want to even call him like a pocket collapser, though there is some of that because he's pretty strong. You can see in the upper body through the chest, and I think he does maximize some of that. You'll see his entry. Like if you watch him ever long arm, the way he'll kind of shift through the strength of his chest, he really works through kind of like those pec muscles, man. When he's hitting the bench, you can see it. He works through that really well. He maximizes the strength there. So there's a little bit of like inside lock that he can create, which creates some knockback, creates some long arm opportunities. And he's got a little bit of that slither to his game. He's got some of that short area agility, which allows him to be a stunt piece, right? I mean, think about what the Lions, these types of players have been for the Lions over the last couple of years, and we're looking for 95 here. We've had that stunt piece, right? We've had the John Kaminsky's that can either be the looper that had some agility that could kind of slide around, kick inside, which is a huge part of this as well, because this is a place that he played a lot. Now, something that's important to keep in mind, Lions have already told us, and we'll get to the needs here in a second. Well, Brad Holmes did. We want to use Josh Paschal, obviously, on the interior, specifically on pass downs. We want to use him on the interior. That's where he's going to add value. DeMarcus Walker also rushes in the interior a lot of times, sub-package. Now, that doesn't mean you have to leave him there. But again, to me, he's not a dominant defensive end. He's not a dominant, like put him on a tackle, he's going to go dominate that tackle. I'm watching against Taylor Decker, and I'm not seeing much impact for long stretches. That being said, he's always been an effort piece. He has a good vision for the ball. He kind of works around through the offensive line well. But when he finds success, to me, more consistently than anything, is when he gets lined up on the inside. Because now that first step that feels average on the outside, all of a sudden it feels like it has a little bit more juice. It feels like his reactiveness gets up a little bit. It feels like he becomes a little bit of a problem for guards reactively right off the ball. He puts some stress, and he has a little bit of, to me, I think a little bit of something that adds a different element for a guy his size. It's a little bit of that short area movement skills, which allows him to translate well. So that ability to put him over guards, that's kind of the spot of success. Those slanting rushes, you bring a slot off the edge, he's going to step inside a gap. I look at it like this. I look at it like John Kaminsky's retiring, right? He's retiring, the injury retirement. You hate that for him, but he's retiring. And ever since he's retired, I really don't feel like we've had a John Kaminsky type. DeMarcus Walker always reminded me of John Kaminsky, because if you think what Kaminsky added to this team, right, we may think of him as, I think everybody could, if you went to any Lions fan, you said, hey man, what did John Kaminsky do for the Lions, right? We could talk about, man, the toughness that the player brought. He brought juice. We kind of like came out of nowhere, right? Former 4th round pick, really burst onto the scene for us. But what did he bring on the field? If that's the question for John Kaminsky, you could have different answers across the board, because stylistically he could line everywhere. He could play as a big DN. He could set the edge. And then you could also kick him inside. You could allow him to work on guards on passing downs. You could allow him to work stunts because he had that ability to play really tight to the line of scrimmage, move up and down the line pretty well. And you could have him move around like that. You could have him go win against guards. You could have him kind of clear out, open up other rushers, because he would kind of just take out a tackle and allow someone to loop around him. He would do all those kind of like little things. To me, I don't think we've had that since we've lost John Kaminsky. We haven't had that exact piece. And now specifically this offseason, and him retiring, obviously we're not going to be getting him back this offseason. I think he would add some of that back to what the Lions have had. I don't view him as like, well, he's your number 2 answer as a rusher. I mean, if he had to go into a game and start, I'd be okay with it because if you think about DeMarcus Walker, a couple of important things here. He's played over 700 snaps each of the last two teams with Chicago. Obviously, as a pass rushing front, they weren't great up front, specifically this last year. And here's why that's important, because the year before, he was actually more productive. The year before this past year, and this speaks to consistency, he's consistently going to be on the field, and reliability matters. I mean, if we're thinking about defense men just in general, Levi, Marcus Davenport, our questions are mainly towards those guys being on the field, right? Levi kind of answered some of those last year. But that's where the main questions are. Marcus Davenport's on the field. That guy's a starter. Like, that's where I'm at with it. There's no question about it. He's a starting player. The question is he going to be on the field? But DeMarcus had something a little bit different because you're confident he's going to be on the field. You're confident he's going to be available, which he's been. He's been available, and he's been consistently productive. And when he has a better front next to him, there's a little bit more production that comes along. Like, again, for example, if you go back a year ago, he had nearly 50 pressures in 2023, similar amount of snaps, a few less stops. You're getting a pretty consistent, all right, I know exactly what this guy's going to bring, right? You're not getting a dominant, overwhelming, bull rush, speed to power type of piece. You're not getting a number two rusher that's like, yeah, he's the DPR. You just put him out there, let him go to work. Like, nah, I'm not getting that. But on third downs, I'll kick him inside, let him find some creases against guards, let him use that long, rangy length that he can bring to the table, that he can just be a disruptor, get in pass lanes, let him track down the quarterback. Then as a run defender, even in this scenario, like, I don't feel like there's as much jolt or as much pop at the point of attack when he's trying to set the edge. But there's consistency there because he does a really good job with his angles in entry. He settles himself really square to the line of scrimmage. He's really tight to his body, so he has an ability to kind of just be really firm at the point of attack. And then again, he has some of that slither where it's like, especially on a tight end, he's just going to overwhelm tight ends. But he has some slipperiness where it's like, all right, I can step down into a gap. I can hold the ground, and then I can step into a gap because of that ability that I have to kind of work some of those short spaces. So I think for us, DeMarcus Walker has kind of just been standing out for me in terms of the free agent market. Like, I know over the last couple of weeks that name, it like not that name, but that position has come up like, oh man, and also I like him on the backside too. His pursuit on the backside is something that I really like within his game, the way that he works down the line of scrimmage. You're going to get all those hustle plays, those kind of things. And honestly, that's how a lot of production comes about, is hustle plays, right? You see him on a stunt here. So I think over the last few weeks, right, everybody's trying to find who's another edge rusher. And I don't think that if the Lions end up signing DeMarcus Walker, I don't want this to be a signing that it feels like it gets, at least for where I'm at right now, misconstrued as like, oh man, this was Lions trying to get their number two edge or whatever you want to. That's not what this is. To me, this is truly depth piece, but it is capable to be a starter. He's reliable. He's going to be available based on his history. He's going to be available. You kind of know what you're getting. You're not getting an elite pass rusher, but you're going to get some consistency there, get a lot of flexibility alignment-wise. And this would really free the Lions up for what we're about to talk about in terms of these needs when I try to kind of sort out what the actual needs are for the Lions before the draft. DeMarcus Walker would make a lot of clarity for what I think the Lions really need to go after. Because, again, for me, stopping the run was step one this offseason. Like, well, we got to get better against stopping the run. DeMarcus will make us better there. He's not going to be an elite run defender, right? That's not really him. I don't think his disengagement's that fast. I think that needs to be a little bit quicker. His hand usage to me isn't great, which is another reason why I don't think he's a dominant pass rusher. Like, you can just put him on a tackle and he's going to shake off his tackle. He doesn't play with that kind of twitch to his game either. So when you tie those two things together, he's just not a dominant pass rusher. But you're kind of, again, thinking about what you got in John Kaminsky and how valuable that was to this Lions defense. And I think the Lions could view a lot of those same things being the case if they could somehow find a way to land DeMarcus Walker. The price point to me will be the most interesting thing because his price point, I don't know where it's going to get to, but I could see it being, a little bit on the higher side because there is production there. But for the Lions, I think that's probably what the conversation has to be about, is trying to figure that out. Like, okay, you feel like you fit in our role here? Like, yes, it makes sense stylistically for you. Are you okay with taking on that kind of role, understanding that, hey, if we're healthy, you may not see the field a ton, but we always use waves of rushers, right? We always talk about that. And then this also takes me back, kind of the last point to put a bow on this whole thing. When Brad Holmes told us this offseason, adding three or four edge rushers, right? Because there is only a few of those game-changing edge rushers, and Hutchinson is one of them. 3 or 4 good edge rushers, I think this would classify as that, right? Because, again, we're not looking at it as, oh, man, he's a really good pass rusher opposite of Hutch. Like, no, that's not what it is. But if you told me, like, hey, John Kaminsky from 2 years ago came back and signed a deal, I'd be like, hey, that counts as one. To me, DeMarcus Walker would fit into that category. And I think when you look at the free agency market right now, there's really nobody that makes a ton of sense like him. He fits. He's played in the division. He's good against the Packers and the Vikings this past season. So it just makes sense. It just makes too much sense for the Lions here. And if the price point makes sense, it's a good stylistic fit. It opens up what those needs are going to be. And it really does, in my opinion, feel a little bit of a need here because there is now flexibility back in the table. And you can be a little more confident. Like, okay, at least we're going to have the bodies this year. I mean, a lot of people could make the case that the biggest thing the Lions needed this offseason was just simply depth. Right? We just had to get better at depth. And getting a depth piece that's durable that tends to make some sense. That makes some sense to me. So again, that's where I'm at with him. DeMarcus Walker signing would be fantastic. He has been hosted by the Lions from what we've heard so far. I haven't heard anything more than that, but that's what I heard today. So I was like, all right, bet we make a video on that or we talk about that because he is going to be he would be a great fit. He'd be a great fit, not a game changer, but a great fit. And to me, that's exactly what the Lions need for the draft because now, as we transition over, the next thing that I want to talk about, and to me, like the whole Za'Darius thing, Za'Darius would have to sign a very cheap contract because they said they basically didn't have the money to pay him what he's getting paid, which means that he would have to take a reduced pay. He'd have to take basically less than a 1 year, $11 million deal, which to me, his production warrants getting paid more than that. At the same time, you're not going to get what you are losing potentially in Za'Darius Smith and DeMarcus Walker, in my opinion. You'll get like effort plays, but you're not getting the pass rusher that Za'Darius Smith was last season. And I don't even, you're probably getting in a similar ball. Maybe I would say you're getting a better run defender just because of the flexibility and how firm he is at the point of attack. I don't feel like Za'Darius is consistently that. Za'Darius can play the run. He just isn't like I don't feel like DeMarcus is like a collapser against the run either, but he's a little bit more consistently productive there. You're going to get more plays. You're going to get more stops. He's a little bit more lengthy. He kind of plays gaps a little bit better, but you're not going to get that as a pass rusher. So again, I really think that even if you just lined it up, like it doesn't even take Za'Darius off the table necessarily. I don't think they're going to bring back Za'Darius. I don't think the price points are going to match up. But I think it's specifically that like this piece is just something they don't have. Even if you had Za'Darius back, they still wouldn't have this piece, and it still could add value to the team and really help them open up this draft board. Because if they could somehow bring in DeMarcus Walker, the flexibility they're going to have entering this year's draft is going to be fantastic. So that moves you on to the next part of this, which I kind of ordered them, but then I was going through it. Like, I didn't think the order was like super important. I was like, all right, the order is probably not that important right here, but these are the positions that I'm kind of looking at when it comes to this year's draft. And I think they're worth kind of just talking through a little bit. The need positions, I guess you could say. First off, and this was interesting because I had this idea before I saw the DeMarcus Walker news. So seeing the DeMarcus Walker news, and this is why I say what I said, you can see what's at the top. Now, I listed literally you could call it three positions, whatever you want to label these as: nose tackle, defensive end. I listed all three at the top, but it's really because I think the Lions could add any of those types of players and it would make sense, right? Say they wanted to go in this draft and it's like, hey, man, we really like this nose tackle, because this also helps you not chase the need. I'm a Jamari Caldwell guy, so I'll use that for an example. Say you're sitting there, Jamari Caldwell, Oregon, sitting there, round 4, whatever. He's a nose tackle but has some flexibility. We want to go after that guy. They could be value there. Now, I think it would be best that nose tackle piece could also play as your defensive tackle, that could also play maybe as an under tackle, a guy that can line up outside shade of a guard, that has a little bit more range to his game. That would be best. I think, in my opinion, I don't know that I want like a true nose that literally can't go outside of a 2-eye alignment. Like, I want to have more flexibility there, but ultimately the flexibility is okay. Like, I don't think there's not like because of the flexibility the Lions have, and especially if you add DeMarcus Walker, you can be flexible in who you also add in the draft. And that's why Walker makes so much sense, because this ended up being at the top of my list. And then when I think about it, I'm like, well, if you added Walker, it helps because you can kind of list him as, well, defense tackle on pass downs, defensive end on early downs. And the value there is, again, number one, and we'll get to edge rusher because that's a little bit different for me. The run defensive aspect, the flexibility we need to have. We're dealing with a lot of guys coming off injuries. You guys brought up my high Wingo yesterday. We have Lee McNeil. We know he's going to miss a pretty good chunk, it sounds like, of the season. So you have a lot of injuries that you're also going through right now, specifically on the inside. So having guys that have flexibility helps, but then it also opens the door for, say, hey, Levi, we want to put you at defensive end. We want to leave you at defensive end. Okay, well, who's going to play D tackle now? Is it Miles Adams? Right? Well, where are we going in that spot? Is it Mekhi Wingo? Well, what if he's not healthy to begin the season? Okay, where's the next guy? Well, if you had a guy that can have some flexibility, now he can fill that role. So for me, that's at the top of the list. Really, any defensive line position, and specifically a guy that I can trust in my hands in the dirt. To me, I think if you add anybody that I can trust hands in the dirt, from zero technique to essentially a 9, but I would really say like a 7 technique, anywhere in that sphere makes some sense to me. Now, I go to free/strong safety depth. I think you could really emphasize free safety first, because I don't really know. Like, Mo Norris is our backup free safety. We have Eric Hallett, who's another one of our backup free safeties. We also have Lauren Strickland, who I would consider more of a strong safety. And then we have our 2 starters, Kirby and Brian Branch. We don't really have like proven depth at either of those spots. And here's what I don't say. I don't hate that, because one thing that I thought about today And I was thinking about this again before we got to this DeMarcus Walker thing, but it's an interesting point because DeMarcus is in a different spot. You had a guy like DeMarcus Walker. He's not really stepping on the toes of a young defensive end where you're like, oh, man, but we wanted to see what that guy could become, right? If like you add DeMarcus Walker, he doesn't have to take away snaps from Aiden Hutchinson, or not Aiden Hutchinson, sorry. He doesn't have to take away snaps from Al Muhammad, because Muhammad still can have a role at that same time, because he fits, to me, right behind Aiden Hutchinson. He's a little bit more of like that designated pass rusher, definitely a different body type, plays a little more stand up. Like, it's a different role. So there's not like a guy that Marcus Davenport would be kind of clouding over. Well, at safety, if you went out and you added a veteran safety, you already had one in Avonte Maddox, but let's say another one, now you could be potentially taking away snaps that could ultimately at some point find a spot for Lawrence Strickland. I'm not saying I'm against that, but I also know that Brad Holmes did tell us just a few weeks ago that a lot of these spots, like he said, we had guys on the practice squad that we liked. We had guys that we kind of want to have that door open for opportunity. There's guys that we like that we want to have the ability to give them an opportunity, which we know that, hey, if we keep signing veterans and putting them in front, they're not going to have that door open to walk through. Well, at this point, you have that door open. So I think also then if you hit the draft and this wasn't a veteran signing, like Maddox is going to have a role in this team. The State Lions went to the draft and drafted Sanker out of Virginia, right? Sanker, I like Sanker a lot. Got some flexibility at safety. I like him a lot. To me, that doesn't necessarily mean that's like, well, now, hey, none of these young guys can play. If you like Strickland, too bad. He's not playing anymore. It's like, not necessarily, because it still is a rookie, and you're now kind of just combining a young guy with a young guy. It's not like you put a veteran where it's like, well, we kind of know what the ceiling is, but we kind of know what we're going to get, but he's better than that guy right now, so let's play that guy. The door still kind of leaves itself open. So safety depth, to me, how the Lions are rolling this, we know who the starters are. But if they don't sign like another veteran and they really roll in with 3, and then outside of that, you have just all young guys, you can add draft picks to that. It leaves a lot of open room for guys to show, hey, I can be flexible. I can play in the slot. I can play down in the box. I can play single high safety. Like, whoever can take over a role and potentially be a part of this team for the future, that is one of the rare spots that we actually have on this team where that role is open. That's one of the rare spots that we have on this team. And yeah, I'm a Jalen Reed guy as well. Jalen Reed out of Penn State. He's my number 3 safety in this year's draft. I think that he should be considered as a second-round pick for whatever reason. He wasn't on some simulators for whatever reason when we were doing it. It always frustrated me. I didn't even realize he was from Detroit, Michigan. So that would be, to me, a good pick because he also fits stylistically. But there's a lot of guys like that to me would make sense. And it feels like that's kind of what the Lions are leaving that door open to, is like the safety position has an opportunity where these young guys can actually take over a role. Now, I put edge rusher. Here's the most interesting thing to me about this. And this is why it's really important to keep an eye on what happens here with DeMarcus Walker. All right. I want to focus on this for a second. I put designated pass rusher at the end. Typically, I would never say this, right? What I put at the front, what I put in the middle is 2 things I would never really say is like, I think the Lions could go get a designated pass rusher, because I always know they like what they like. They like size. They like physicality. They want some length. They want guys that can collapse the pocket, right? That doesn't really fit. And I also want guys that can play the run. I'm the one that's screaming for it. Let's get better against the run, whatever that means. Linebacker, safety, corner, D-line, whatever that may be. However, especially with this news, the more that I think about it, especially if you add a guy like DeMarcus Walker, the more, to me, the door opens for, you could get a guy that you actually just view as more of a designated pass rusher. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, we did a mock. I had a David Walker out of Central Arkansas. That, to me, he would come in as a designated pass rusher. But if you think about the Lions over the last couple of years, the Lions have valued designated pass rushers if they're very good pass rushers. James Houston, of course, was the most obvious example. We saw him last season. Let's not forget about games like Houston, for example, where he was the guy that came up with a couple of big plays, right? Got under pads, had a little bit, he has a completely different flair. He would bend, he was low to the ground. It was like a natural leverage thing. He was a little bit of a problem because then it was so much different than everybody we had. We couldn't find a role for him on rundowns. And we tried to. We're like, all right, maybe you'll be kind of the Sam backer. And then ultimately Barnes took that role over. It was like, all right, what is this role? But there was a value for him. It was just that maybe it wasn't as consistent, and obviously he didn't end up sticking around with us. There was that battle during the offseason where you threw Matthew Betts. That probably would have been a similar situation because you weren't keeping him for what he could be against the run. You were keeping him for that guy brought something different, brought some juice to the table as a pass rusher. And when I think about these examples that we've had in the past, and when I think about what we saw last season as well, especially if they add a guy like DeMarcus Walker, that to me opens the door for that a lot more, right? Because while they could get their number 2 edge and they could absolutely double dip and they could try to find the future outside of Aiden Hudson, all of those kind of things, having that guy that brings something different is actually a piece that's wide open for the Lions. It's kind of like DeMarcus Walker can fill that John Kaminsky role. That is a spot that is wide open that the Lions could fill. And there's a value with it now because of where they're at. When you have Marcus Davenport, Levi, and if you had Walker that can all play that defensive end role and all that flexibility you could have up front, that's why that's at the top, is having those guys. But if you feel comfortable there, you don't need to also be like, well, whoever we draft also has to have that upside to be able to play the run, be a 3-down player. Like, realistically, if you're not going in the first 2 rounds, you're probably not getting that guy. You might have to be a little creative with this role. But if once you get outside those first 2 rounds, in most cases in the draft, you're a lot of times drafting a guy to be a designated pass rusher because that's what he does well. And it's like, we'll figure out everything else later. That's what he's going to do. Or you're drafting a guy that really hasn't put it together at all. And you're kind of just banking on, well, maybe there's some traits here that we can jump into. Outside of that, that's what you're doing, right? These guys don't last. Those players don't last. They go early. They go high. They're off the board. So for the Lions there, to me, especially if they can add Walker, and we're really talking about specifically saying, hey, don't want to draft need specifically, and you want to be flexible throughout the draft, that opens the door of flexibility. DeMarcus Walker helps open that door. The door of flexibility for the draft actually opens wide open for the Lions at edge, where they can have their sights on, like, hey, we don't got to discard this guy just because he doesn't have the ideal build, right? And it reminds me of when we took James Houston. He did something, and he did something well. He rushed the passer. We figure everything out later. We'll try him at off ball. It doesn't work. But what does he do? He rushed the passer. All right, just put him on the line and let him run. Like, that's it. And it's like, all right, does that value work out? Does it make sense to draft that piece? People may argue against it. But again, once you're getting beyond round 2 at that point, a lot of these guys aren't going to be starters anyway. That's your hope, but they're not going to be. So for the Lions where they're at, this is actually a really good opportunity for the Lions to actually look at the draft and say, okay, that's a piece that we can make sense of. And I actually had a note here. Let me make sure I didn't miss one of my notes before we move on, because we got 2 more of these to hit on here. Josh Pascal also working inside. We saw last season Za'Darius Smith. He's another guy thrown in this. Like, Za'Darius could play the run, as mentioned, and that was a big part. I thought that he was interesting for the Lions, but it wasn't like Za'Darius was he's a run stopper, man. That's his thing. The dude got after the quarterback. Where the Lions were at, they needed someone that could just get after the quarterback. So even if you just look back at last year, first thing that I think Za'Darius clearly was, he's going to impact the quarterback. He's going to get after it. So now when it was like, all right, run defense, yeah, he may add some of that. But the more I kind of look back on it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure the Lions' first priority was clearly just go. Think about a couple years ago what we did with Seattle. Bruce Irvin. Now, that's a little bit different, right? It's not the kind of same investment. But they added Bruce Irvin towards the end of the season. Did they add him because they were like, yo, we need a little bit of run defense? They said, just somebody get after the quarterback. And I think for the Lions now, when we talk about, well, hold up, all these holes are filled. They can go anywhere in the draft. Well, that opens the door now to go in the draft and say, well, get that guy. If you want to get that guy, get that guy. You don't have to maybe draft the guy that can play all 3 downs, right? You don't have to search for that in round 4 and be like, well, hopefully these things come together, because otherwise he's either not going to be a good player or he might be a good player and be able to do a lot of different things. But there's a chance he just can't play, right? But we're betting on the traits here. It's like, well, maybe just throw that out the window at some point. Whether you draft an edge early or not, get a guy that can get after it. And especially if you can, especially once I saw this DeMarcus Walker news come kind of just pop up, immediately I'm like, oh, this makes even more sense now. Now it makes even more sense that they could do that, because typically I never even consider that. I'm like, oh, they have to be a certain style. But if you added Marcus Walker, they don't have to be. They don't have to with where the Lions are at. Get a dude that can get after it. And that could allow Lions to be like, hey, well, one of the good edges we got was DeMarcus. The other one was the one we got in the draft that can kind of get after the quarterback, something different. It just makes a lot of sense for them. All right. The other 2 that I had, now the last 2, honestly, were just kind of throw-ins because, I just want to add some things there. Interior offensive line. This one's legit. I want interior offensive line depth. And I say interior offensive line, he could be a center. He could be a guard. He can play a little tackle if he wants to. But my focus is guard center. I want a guy that can play guard/center. If he can't play center and guard, that's okay. If he only can play guard, that's fine. If you only can play center, that's fine. I'd rather have a guy that can also play guard. I think that'd be my preference. Maybe I'd have to double dip at that point. If I added a Seth McLaughlin, I don't think he's playing guard at the next level. So I don't know if that would be my only investment at the offensive line. But for the most part, a lot of these guys, it's kind of guard first. So yeah, add a guy that can play on the interior. If he can play center guard, if he can't, if you only can play guard, that's fine. Add somebody like that. That's something that I would look to add in this period, especially if he can add center value, or if you want to double dip, or you can add a UDFA that plays center, because right now your backup center is Michael Neese from last season, who was fine, but I mean, you kept him around because you need a guy to play center, not because he could play everywhere. It was just because you literally just needed anybody that could play backup center. Kingsley Egukan, yeah, add a guy add a guy on the interior this offseason. That would make some sense. I'm pretty comfy at tackle. Dan Skipper back, Giovanni Manu going a year or two. They seem pretty high on him. So pretty comfy there. And then wide receiver number 5, depth. This isn't even a guarantee the guy would make the team. But when I say this, I try to think like, okay, when I say wide receiver 5, what style, right? Because we talking about styles of pass rushers, talking about styles of linemen. What style does the guy got to be? The more I thought about it, I'm like, I don't think there is a style that he has to be. Some years you're like, oh, you need that big body, you need that vertical threat. And while I think that would probably be preference maybe number 1, maybe by a small margin because you have Antoine Green and he kind of brought that on paper, just didn't really connect. And then obviously, this last season kind of got let go and now he's kind of back. So you have that. And it's like, well, Jameson, he's going to get his 5th-year option picked up. Maybe beyond that, you could add a guy that could potentially take that role maybe at some point. Tim Patrick's a little bit older. So if you could find a guy that could at very least maybe replace Tim Patrick down the road, that would make some sense. So like that would probably be number 1, but that's not even like really Tim Patrick's like go-to game. That's part of his game. He can do it. He can win one-on-one. He does a lot of things after the catch. He's kind of our zone beater. He does a lot of good things underneath. I think it can be any style. If you want to go get a guy that works in the slot a lot, that's fine with me. You want to put someone behind St. Brown that can compete with Ronnie Bell because Ronnie Bell's not a take the top off kind of guy. That guy is a really, really detailed route runner. All right? I had him with a great grade as route running. A lot of other things weren't great. I didn't think his play speed was very good. That's why I thought that he was going to be a late 7th round pick. He ends up going, I think it was undrafted or late 7th round. I think I had him as a UDFA and he went late 7th round. Like that's not his game. So we have already kind of like a jumbled mess of like just different types of receivers. We don't really have like a body type we're looking for. And I think that's how it should be in this year's draft. Like if you want to go receiver, go for it. Just take the best receiver. If he's a slot, go for the slot. If you want a guy that can replace Khalif because he's got some vertical juice, but he also has returning upside, go that guy. I don't really have a preference on what style the more I thought about it. I don't really have a preference because I think any of these spots, if you had a guy that could replace Khalif, boom, there's a spot there. If you could replace Tim Patrick, boom, there's a spot there. If you could replace JMO, boom, there's a spot there potentially. But outside of that, it's like, hey, just add a receiver. If you want to add a receiver, add some competition. Then, of course, tight end. We had Kenny Yeboah. We brought another guy for a visit, I think. I don't think that one's had anything happen. I like Kenny Yeboah, but I still would like a guy that can be a little bit more of a pass catcher for us. And I haven't seen enough there for Kenny, especially as like, all right, route running, that kind of stuff feels pretty limited. But if the Lions wanted to add another like receiving threat, we can call it, as a tight end, that's probably what I would lean towards a little bit. You have Brock, you have Laporta kind of locked up. I'd still be interested in adding that, someone that could add a little more juice just specifically in the pass game. And then I put linebacker. This one kind of remains the same. Somebody that could play behind Alex, not even play behind it, but this could potentially develop into a piece as the linebacker opposite of Jack Campbell. Like Malcolm's that guy right now, but maybe down the road you get a guy with those physical traits. Speaking of defensive end, maybe he has the physical traits where he's a little bit longer, maybe he's got a little bit better, speed. I don't know, like whatever that may be. Some just have a little bit more upside in some of those categories. He's not there right now. That could just potentially be that piece in the future down the road at some point. Or a guy behind Barnes, someone that you trust on the line of scrimmage that can set the edge against the run, that could drop into coverage, maybe brings a little bit of plus juice as a rusher, a Samuel Mondon out of Georgia, something like that. And then I threw fullback in there because I'm still not sure what we're doing with fullback, but I don't want to say that it's not possible the Lions add one. So with that, over here on Bleacher Report, man, we're going to end it. Those are your Lions needs ranked updated. And also that is going to be DeMarcus Walker. We'll see if something happens. If it does, we'll talk about it. But until then, I'm out. Appreciate y'all joining over here on Bleacher Report, man. All right. We are done. My goodness. That show went so fast. Dude, I had so many notes on DeMarcus Walker. I read none of them. I'm going to be honest with you. I had a whole page of stuff to talk about. Read none of them. 11% pressure rate this past season. I had nothing on there, dude. I didn't read a dang thing off of this thing, bro. We were just rolling. That thing was flying so fast. Could Vaki fill a role in the secondary? I don't think so. I've had that before. I'm not saying like he's not capable. I just don't think he would. And I mean, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they are trying something like that. I didn't like him as a safety coming out. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't like him as a safety that much coming out. So when we drafted him, that's why I was confused. I was like, all right. And he's tough. You can see that. But I'm like, I don't really like him in the back end. So when they flipped him to running back, it actually got me excited about what it could turn into. I just wasn't a big him as a defensive back. So doesn't mean he's not capable. Obviously, he did it. So maybe they have their view on something like that. They could try it. If he can't find a role at running back, maybe you try it. I'm not against trying things. I just didn't really like him that much at Utah at safety. So for me, I don't think I would touch it. I still think he'd be awesome at running back. I do think we double it in. I think we definitely could double up at end. I think it's absolutely on the table. Sam, outside linebacker. Mike Green, James Pierce, Cy Stewart, Powell Jr. Yeah, Walker. Hopefully Walker. That's the one. That's the one right there. And then it's one of those bigger guys. I know. I tried to get an Ivy a little bit. I really couldn't. I like Jordan Birch a lot, though. And Savion Jones is nice too. He'll go in the top 3 rounds. He should go in the top 3 rounds, I would assume. They should bring back Betts instead. I said Betts instead. I thought it was gonna work, bro. I did. I thought it was gonna work, and then it didn't work. And after that first game, I was pretty optimistic. I was like, he didn't do anything, but he showed a little juice. And then he got more stats, and then he showed some stuff, and then it just didn't come together. I was like, all right, James Houston's the guy. Go with James Houston. He's clearly the guy here. Roll with James Houston. And they did. And look, Josiah Stewart would some of that would probably be local visiting, I'm assuming, because of where he's at. Josiah Stewart would make a ton of sense for that exact point, right? Like, people are going to question what's his run defense. Oh, what is he going to be? Well, it's like, well, let's not put ourselves in the box of like, oh, he has to be a traditional DN, like, because I do that a lot. But it's like, just do what he does. He rushes a passer really well. If you draft him, we'll find a spot for him. We can do that now. Let's go get that. We'll figure out the run later. Maybe he does back up Barnes, and that's kind of the role in early downs because injuries happen. Things happen. Guys move around. Maybe Barnes kicks to Mike, and you got to put somebody on the line. Things happen, right? You're adjusting all the time. So this isn't going to be chalk. But what does he do really well? He rushes the passer. So if you want a guy that can get out of the passer, draft him. Like, so, because I've been hesitant to do that. But today I kind of like opened my eyes to like, maybe I don't need to be thinking like this. This is the value of, building your team out, right? Like, this is the idea of, hey, we don't have to draft needs. Is like, he doesn't have to fit a certain prototype. Just get a guy that can get after it. That's fine with me. If the worst case is he's a really good pass rusher, that's a heck of a draft pick for where this team is. And they would value the heck out of that. Worst case, oh man, only on passing situations he can be on the field. Hey, I'll take that. That dude's on the field 40% of the time. That's money. That's money. I'm on board with that, especially if he adds a little bit of something different. There's actually a value, I think, to guys that can add a little something different. Josiah Stewart, someone with some bend, someone that can play the edge, someone's got some juice off the edge, like something that's just a little bit different than what we have. We got all these dudes that can kick in. If Pascal's going to kick in, he's on Walker, he plays inside. Who can get out there and really, turn the corner? And some tackles struggle with that. Some tackles are better against that. But man, like, there's dudes that struggled against. Houston struggled against that. And it played into our strengths as a team. It was like, oh, man, that came through because they struggled to deal with that. And if we didn't have that piece available, I don't know if we get some of those key pressures. Minnesota, right? James Houston had a couple plays in there. But it's like, not every team maybe. Maybe there's certain games that you like, and maybe the matchup's better. But, man, certain tackles don't do as well. Maybe they're 6'9". They're high cut in the waist, and they can't get down that well. And it's like, man, I would love to deal with a bull rusher all day. And they're like, all right, maybe we get some success there. But that little dude they put out here on third down is a problem. I hate dealing with this guy. It's like that little short dude you got to guard in basketball. Like, hey, that's fine with me. That's where our team is at. I don't need you to be a 3-down player in the future. Just be good now. But I think it makes a ton of sense. Finally looking at safeties. Safety class is pretty good. I'll be honest. I think safety class is one of my favorites. I think this is a really good safety group. I think this is, obviously we all like D-line. There's parts of the linebacker that we like. Tight end has some nice things in there, but safety's up there. I think safety's up there. Offensive line's pretty deep. I think offensive line's pretty deep. Defensive line, we know what that is. But I like the safety group. I think it's a strong safety group. I think it's a pretty, especially if you go relatively early. But I think within the first 4 or 5 rounds, there's going to be some dudes, and I think there's a couple of dudes in there late that are going to find a way to impact the team because that seemingly is how kind of safety does work out. Because you don't have to be a fantastic athlete to make it work at safety, which I think opens up a potential. It doesn't guarantee for you can have a little bit of a broader skill set and find a way. Like you don't have to meet all these prototypical measurements to make it work at safety. Certain positions you don't have to, but it really helps. Safety, I don't think is one of those. There's like, and say if you run the 4.7, maybe we have a problem. But for the most part, I think a lot of guys can fill into that box, which allows safeties to go and make sense a little bit later in the draft. Saw the Vaki thing. Lions have no depth without staying healthy. And that's why Walker makes a ton of sense because he's reliable. Like in terms of based on what we know about him, he's going to be available. And availability would be great for the Lions. At worst, having a guy that you trust is going to be available, I'm on board with that. Land Larison out of UC Davis. Land Larison. Is he like a returner? Does he return at all? You know what I mean? Hey, if he can do a little, kick returning and stuff, you know what I mean? I'll have to check him out though. I've heard that name a couple times. I don't know if from you or all this stuff kind of gets jumbled together, but I know I've heard that name before. I haven't gotten to running backs very much. I mean, I'm pretty good on like the top portions. I kind of have my rankings set out there, but like the back end, not really. Back end, not really for me. I haven't looked at those guys. And that if the Lions do take a running back, that's probably where it'll end up happening. But I haven't looked at those at all. Lions have this one. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I plan on doing like some sort of visit thing. I don't know how we're gonna do that, but like maybe we like separate like specific types of visits, and we'll do like a thing on those specific types of visits. I'm I want to do one of those, like at least one video like that. Maybe it's a live stream, something where we kind of just connect on a lot of players, kind of connect the dots, maybe add a little background to a couple of these guys that were not just names. I think that'd be good. Did the Lions also visit with Jalen Reed? Like last couple of days, I've been seeing that name pop up a lot, which is it's wild because PFF I still don't think has him on the simulator, and I heard about him probably a little over a month ago because we were doing a mock draft over on Draftaholics, and Broshmo's our draft guy, and I was like, "Yo, that Penn State safety is he just not listed?" And he was like, he was trying to figure out who we were talking about. And I was like, no, the other guy. And he said, no, Jalen Reed ain't even on here. So that's the first time we brought him up. Since then, I've kind of given up on. It's actually frustrated me. It's actually frustrated me with the dang simulator because, like, why is guys like this not on here? He's too good to not be on here, and I think he's a dog. Like, I said I didn't know he went to. I didn't know he's from Detroit. I didn't know he went to high school there. You start to connect those dots. It's like, shoot, man, this guy fits too. He's actually a perfect fit because stylistically he makes a ton of sense as well. I think it was on our last week's video or 2 weeks ago, right? We talked about him a little bit there, and we did like the guys that feel like Lions. I think he was on that, right? What is he? 5'11" and a half, 211 pounds, bro. And I thought he was a little bit more of a slender build, to be honest. He played some nickel against Illinois, 19 bench press reps, 2-year starter. I thought he was like a day 2 kind of guy. Like my grades are super high on the player, man. 3-level ability, play speed, ball skills, plays with eye balance. Really nice eye balance, single high discipline. Like to me, bro, like that makes so much sense. He just fits. He fits, man. Sean Dolak versus Danny Stutzman. Okay. Hey, well, I don't know if we'll do that. I'm gonna be honest with you. Straight up, that probably won't happen. Probably won't happen for time wise. But right now I'm working on that edge. Told y'all we were working on that edge video. So working on the edge rankings, and that'll be next up. And then when we do linebacker, hopefully I connect the dots on a lot of these things. Because I think if we get to a good spot, like I don't need to rank every position. I don't need to rank wide receivers. There's so many wide receivers. Probably not going to rank wide receivers. There's so many of those dudes. Edge is kind of tough too. If I hadn't already had a good amount done, I wouldn't do it. Even in that video, someone brought it up in our live stream. Like I might just do like the next tier of edge rushers and call it something like that. And maybe just like skip the top, like have them listed, but not even talk through them. It's because there's so many of those dudes. There's so many different styles too. Like I kind of have to focus on the style. Certain position we probably won't do, but like tight end you could do, off ball linebacker we could do things like that. Safety, I think we could do safety, especially if we added a little bit like not slot safeties. Like if we had a little bit of nuance to it, we could do that. But Diggs also had a visit. Yo, did that just recently happen? I know you were hyped when you saw that news. Carlos, what up, Carlos? It's a lot of guests for Detroit in this draft, A-class edge rusher, and so on. Bro, it's crazy, but like I also think that's the best way to go about this draft. And I think yesterday's mock draft kind of opened my eyes to that specifically because as we were going through it, like I liked who we ended up with. Ended up with Sanders where we did in getting Walker out of Sacramento State. Like I liked how it ended. I like the players that we got. But like typically I wouldn't do that because I'd almost feel like I got to go after this style. He's got to be a bigger DN. He's got to be longer. He can't have 31-inch arms like he does. He can't be 6'1", loaded to the ground, real stout and wide. It's like it doesn't work. But like I think that's the wrong way. Like I think this is especially the wrong year to do that. I'm not saying you can't go after that guy, but I'm saying you shouldn't close your mind to it because I think you're going to limit yourself on how talented this draft is. That's what makes this draft for edge really strong is that there's so many guys. And it's like you cut the depth really thin as soon as you put them into they have to fit in this box. Like even Donovan Ezaraku. Like, does he fit? If I put this cap on, like, they have to be the style, I don't know they go as Raku because he'll probably go high enough where you'd have to use a first-round pick. So that's where the balance could kind of come into play. It's different when you can use a round 4 pick on an edge rusher versus round 1 on an edge. But it's even the same conversation. Like, does Ezaraku fit? I don't know. But it's like you're kind of taking away a player that can really get after the quarterback because they don't fit into this chart. When realistically, if you could add a DeMarcus Walker, we should be super open-minded. You got the dudes here. You got the dudes to do it. You got the foundation in place to make that draft pick work. I don't think everybody has that. We didn't always have that. Like, if this is how this plays out, I'm going to spoil it now. If the Lions end up adding a guy like a Josiah Stewart, Jalen Walker, you know what I mean? Hey, yo, Jalen Walker, you know what I mean? But no, honestly, if they added someone like that, we're going to have to go back and give credit to the Josh Paschal draft pick, bro. Because Josh Paschal is part of the reason that we could do that a few years later. Because if we didn't have that, like Paschal, we know he's not like a great pass rusher. But also, that's not really his, it was never his thing on the edge. But also, he's kind of like a core piece because of that. It's like, all right, but we know what he is. He's going to play the run pretty darn well. He's a tone setter on the edge. And it's like, okay, but because you did that, because a couple years ago you said, let's get he might not be the most fun prospect, but he's going to hit people. Because we did that, now we can go the DPR. Now we can do that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do that. That's kind of a cool way to think about it. Like, we allowed ourselves to do this. So now let's not close our minds to it, because we're going to miss out on a loaded edge rusher draft, because we're going to say if he doesn't fit this criteria, we can't draft him. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. That would be crazy. Like, you've allowed yourself to do it, so do it, man. Take that guy then. Take the DPR. I'm with it. Is Golladay still around? He's not he's not on a team, I don't believe. I think he's still listed as officially a free agent. I don't think he's on a team. Lions reportedly met with Q Robertson. Why'd I really like that? Okay, I think someone brought that up yesterday too. He'll be in the Edge video. He'll be in the Edge video we do. I don't know when that's going to be. Probably won't be out today. Hopefully tomorrow. I can't guarantee it, but hopefully. But I'd say worst, hopefully Friday. Friday at worst, we'll get that out. Do you think there's a player the Lions could trade away on draft day? I thought about that. Not really. You know, like I don't. No one really came to mind that I think would be smart to trade off of. I don't think so, man. Like, when Swift happened, we even did a mock with trading Swift before that. So that one made some sense. I don't think this one has that piece there, because it's like the guys that could be, I would think, are at stronger positions. Like, say because the edge is where it is, you're like, all right, let's move off Muhammad. Well, it's like, why would you trade Muhammad? You just signed him. It's like, there's no, doesn't make any sense. So they don't really have, like, I think, enough guys that are like under those long enough deals where it makes sense. Like, Paschal would be the only guy. Like, could they move off of Paschal? Where they're like, hey, we're probably not going to pay him anyway, so let's just move off him. Like, maybe that, if someone really wanted, I don't think he'd have that kind of value, but maybe somebody really wanted Paschal, like maybe something like that. If you were able to land, I mean, I just use Michael Williams. That's who's coming to mind. Like, if you were to get him in the first round, could you then move off Paschal? Maybe, you know what I mean? But I don't think his value's that high. Not worth where his contract. I don't think he has that much value right now. I don't think he would. I don't think other teams know the draft is like that too. So I don't think, it almost would have to happen after the draft or during the season. Maybe during the season to get the most for him. Like when we trade away Hawk. Isaac Tesla at 102, who says no. I'd say no at 102. I don't think I'd take him at 102. I like him. We did our Draftaholics mock. I took him in the third round. They were cooking me for it. So Rogue Blue, I'm a little disappointed you weren't there for me, Rogue Blue. I'm gonna be honest with you. Because you saying that, they were roasting me, bro. They were like, oh, this is the worst pick in the draft. Crazy. They were saying that, though. People were, I think they were saying that. People were thinking that. They didn't say it. They were thinking that. I got cooked for that draft pick. I thought it was a good draft pick. I thought I was out here making moves, man. I was like, oh, man, we can get a sleeper? Heck no, man. They hated that draft pick. All right, here it is. Let me find it. Taylor Decker for a third. Nah, bro, I ain't moving off Taylor Decker for a third. I'll be stingy with Decker. I need a first round pick for Decker. Straight up. I'm not, especially watching DeMarcus Walker against the Lions, bro. Like, that'll make you like Taylor Decker a lot more. Because I'm no joke. I'm not kidding. I was watching Taylor Decker against the Lions, or I was watching DeMarcus Walker against the Lions again, and I'm watching it happen, and I'm like, yo, man, he's struggling against Penei Sewell a little bit. No doubt, no lie. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's on the left side. Like, that's not Penei, that's Taylor Decker. Like, Taylor Decker's handling business against this dude. He's pushing him out of the play. He's dogging this guy a little bit. That like made me like Taylor Decker even more. I was like, man, I bet Taylor Decker, bro, he's that dude, man. If I'm the GM, bro, I'm not even answering the phone, to be honest with you. He's like, you know how they have that like untouchable list in video games? He's on that list for me, bro. We're not even answering the phone. It's crazy. You were enjoying the roast. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, now that's crazy, because now you're going to come back and be like, hey, that dude. Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy. He said Decker for a third and future fifth. Is that what Slay went for? That sounds so familiar. Isn't that what Slay went for? A third and a fifth? Now, hey, if we look back on that one, was that a good trade? Y'all tell me. You know what I mean? He was on the older side. I'm just saying, bro. Like, hey, if it was Madden, I'd do it because I'm gonna make a move. I'm gonna go get a tackle, and they got overalls next to their names, so it doesn't really matter. Like, if the guy's I have a number, he's gonna be good. But like in real life, bro, I just don't trust anybody, bro. I need to trust my offensive line with Goff. He might be ready. He absolutely could be, and I have no way of knowing. I would love that. But like, even if I knew, even if I felt like, bro, this dude could start next season, I still wouldn't trade him, bro. I still wouldn't trade him. Like, we're gonna wait a year. We're gonna wait a year, bro. We need to see preseason because it's like, no, that's just like one of those untouchable things for me. Like, nah, I ain't doing that. It was insane anyway. That was messy, man. That was messy back then. But like the value though. Because I think it was a third and a fifth. I mean, he went to Philly, didn't he? I could be wrong. I think we did trade him to Philly. Where did we trade him? I thought we traded him to Philly, and he was just there, like for a while. I guess he was there for a while. I didn't even think about that. He was there for a minute, but he could be ready. And I don't. I just wouldn't do it. Tesla could be a wide receiver too, maybe. I won't be that optimistic on him, but I like that y'all are. See, this is why I need you on the Draftaholic shows, bro. Y'all need to have my back. When people think I'm crazy, y'all need to have my back. I'm about to show you the clip of this, so you guys can see what happened here. How many draft trades would you guess Brad pulls off? I think Brad pulls off. That's a good question. Two came to mind. I think two, one or two. I would think one or two because he has so many back end picks. I could see him just trying to get off of those, like move up in the 6th round, just something like that. Just like, let me get off of these 7th rounders. I don't need these. I could see him just trying to get rid of those picks. So I think that'll probably happen. And I still think that first pick could be moved, like moving up or down. I still think that's very possible that one gets thrown somewhere. But I don't think he's going to hold all those back end picks. Even if it doesn't do much for him, just getting off those picks, I think he'll be cool with it. That's a slight move in the 6th. I don't know what it is. Package it with something else. I think he'd want to get off of those. I'm trying to find the Decker needs to go win a Super Bowl with us. Hey, he does. It'd be amazing if he did. He'd be the perfect guy to do it. He's been there, man. That's Mr. Reliable, man. Oh, snap. Wait, hold up. I think I found it. I think I found it, dog. Yo, okay, here. All right, I'm going to share this. Let me know if y'all can hear this, bro. Oh, snap. Hey, I love that shirt, though. Shout out to them. They actually made that shirt. Let me put this on the headset. Yo, do I still sound okay? Yeah. All right. Like what their actual picks are left. Oh, hold up. I got to switch the audio. Do you see the Lions drafting Milroe? I don't, but I don't think it's a 0% chance. I'm gonna be honest. I don't think it's 0% that they go quarterback. I don't think they're gonna do it, but I don't think it's 0%. I think Milroe will probably go too high, which would be the problem. Like if this was a full 7-rounder. Oh, you know what I mean? Say he fell a little crazy. Say he fell day 3. They got some ammunition, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? We could, but we're gonna jump ahead of it. So I do want to go receiver. I want to get someone. But I would also say this. Even to that point, like Hendon Hooker and Milroe to me aren't similar. Like I don't think those two are similar. So if you're just going like based on the styles that like if they added Hooker, I don't think those two are similar. I'm not saying that means they can't do it. We just got done talking about styles, but I don't think those two are similar players. I think Hendon Hooker is much different. Obviously, Hooker's an athlete, but I think those two are very different. So if we just based on Hooker, like what they wanted, and obviously what they went after Kyle Allen and kind of the veteran, like I don't think that those two are the same. I also really don't think they're going to trade away Hendon Hooker because even the way that Brad put it, like they would have to get a lot for him because he said essentially he's only had 1 year with the Lions and he was way better in the preseason. Like he was awesome in the preseason. So I just want to see what it looks like this year. This guy could be amazing. This guy could be amazing this year in the preseason. Like I don't know what the path is, but I'm never moving off a backup because here's the thing. You move off Hendon Hooker, right? Season's going on. Week 7, you need a quarterback. Now you have Milroe or Kyle Allen, you're probably losing. Like, there's a really good chance you're losing that football game, regardless of who is getting. You're probably losing that game, probably. But if I have Hendon Hooker, I believe with another, offseason as we're going through here, like actually healthy now, I think that guy wins the football game. I mean, if he takes the strides he took last year, he's winning that game. One with Brian Thomas, that kind of offsets the skill set a little bit. This could be a little bit of a swing. We'll see. I'm going to take Isaac Tesla out of Arkansas.
Wow.
Hey, no, Tim Boyle just got signed. You coming in with jokes. That dude just got signed. Hey, that dude gets jobs, though. Shout out to Tim Boyle. I was fired up when Tim Boyle got that deal. Good for him, man. Good for him. I think he just got signed. Can y'all hear this? You know what? Let me just check on my end. I asked, but it's like, I don't know if it's playing or not. Every majority of the time, this thing does not work. So I probably should just check. You know what I mean? How though? Hey, he's a dog, bro. He's a dog, man. He throws a good football. He throws it kind of goofy, but he throws a good ball though. Hey, we got to be real. He can throw a nice football. I don't know who signed him though. Oh, yeah, the sound's working. Okay, shout out to StreamYard. It's actually working. Here you go. Could be a little bit of a swing. Man, you know what I mean? We could, but we're gonna jump ahead of it. So I do want to go receiver. I want to get someone with Brian Thomas that kind of look at this draft pick, baby. This could be a little bit of a swing. We'll see. I'm gonna take Isaac Tesla out of Arkansas.
Wow.
Yeah, this is definitely a swing, right? I mean, obviously,
it's a swing, man.
Post draft helped him a lot. Hopefully, playing in the slot like he did. But I want a little bit of size, man. I want a vertical threat. I want a little looseness, and I feel like Tesla brings some of that. This is like might take a minute. But they added De'Ami Brown this offseason. They added Gabe Davis, so we can allow it to take a minute.
Nobody's buying what I'm putting down.
That roll together, hopefully.
I like when Dose reaches for picks, man. That's my guy right there. Exactly that's my guy. Every time I see him reach for a pick, I'm like, yeah, that's Dose right there. Yeah, that's classic Dose. I like that. It's just
but look at that draft though. Chad, tell me that's not a fires draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Alec Williams, Mason Taylor, then I come back and give him to Isaac Tesla. That's a nasty draft. I think that's a nasty draft, man. They got their tight end, which they need a tight end. They'll put him with Brenton Strange. And I'm thinking like, they've always, kind of had a nice tight end with Tampa Bay. Alec Williams got a good little run defense. It's not a reach, though. Charles, this was 8 days ago. Tell the people, bro. Joseph Millen. That's great. Hey, but I'm not trading for the Lions, though. So here's how I look at it, right? I can reach on these picks because they're not my picks. You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, I'm drafting somebody else. Look at my man Derek's face. This is what he thinks about this draft pick. Look at his face. Right there. That's what I'm going through personally. And this is why I need support. Look at everybody's face. Disgusted. He's not even paying attention anymore. He's not even watching the draft anymore. Colby's just laughing. It's crazy.
No Jalen Royals for you. Not into it here for the Jags.
I took him last time, so I was like, maybe I shouldn't take the same guy again. But also, it's a little bit different body type. You know what I mean? I want a little.
You're not into like Pat Bryant?
No, I'm not as high on Pat Bryant personally. You know what I mean? I like Tesla's upside, man. I feel like that dude can open it up as Charles. There you go, right to your point. No. We just making moves, bro. It's just that simple, dog. Yeah, it's making moves. I think I broke the thing though. I ain't gonna lie. Like, you know what I mean? I like Tesla's upside, man. I feel like that dude can open it up as a level 3 guy. That's where
I do like Tesla. I do like him a lot. I don't know if I like him in the third round, but I do like him.
There we go. You like him in the third round. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, I do. I actually love him in the third round. I think this is excellent value. Broshman, what do you think?
I sold him.
Hey, when it comes to draft, love who you want to love. I don't even think he was the best Arkansas wide receiver.
Damn.
I like Andrew Armstrong much better.
All right. I'll leave that there. They don't know what they're talking about. It's fine. It's fine. It just gave up because we won the first 2 rounds. The first 2 rounds are tough. Shoot, them first 3 rounds are tough. Mace Taylor wants to go to round 3. Come on, man. That's a nasty draft for Jacksonville. I went to work a little bit. They weren't even feeling my first pick, though, to be honest. I don't even think they were feeling my first pick for Jacksonville, which is crazy. Yo. That's quite sense for the team. But I don't even think they were feeling changing it up a little bit. because I feel like the people need something new. We can't do the same thing every time. I guess we could, but we'll see. Let's go. We're gonna go a little bit off the board. We're gonna get a pass rush help though, because I do want to add someone there. I think that that front seven as a whole, they just need some juice. So I'm gonna give someone different. Trayvon Walker, he's developing big time. We'll get someone to rotate in there with Hines Allen. We're gonna go Jalen Walker at 5.
Ooh, Jalen Walker.
Come on, man. I was out here shocking the world with these draft picks.
Brother,
Lock it in.
Jalen Walker at 5. Why is he like so far down on this list too?
He's very far down on the list. That's
never made sense to me why PFF is so far down on him. I've had him fall to the third round before. Never.
Hey, wouldn't that be something? Let this dude fall to us. This is one thing I hope PFF is correct about. Hopefully PFF is correct about what they're thinking of Jalen Walker. That guy gets to 20. Making that move. You know what I mean? Like I'm throwing my future first. Anyway, yeah, third round. I don't know, bro. I've seen some goofy stuff on PFF, in fairness. I was watching a dude do a mock on PFF, and it had the Lions. He wasn't picking for the Lions, so the computer was taking the Lions. It gave us Cam Scatterboo in the second. And then the third, we got RJ Harvey. I was like, yo, I like both those dudes. That doesn't make any sense. Like, even the first one, I was like, all right, that's kind of weird. You know what I mean? But maybe they were just like, all right. I don't know. It was like, oh, he's tough. This is Lions guy. It's like, okay. And then they also gave us RJ Harvey. All right, this thing is all over the place. It makes me concerned a little bit with PFFs because, like, you're doing these mocks and you don't really pay attention to where other guys go until you watch someone else do it. Then you're like, wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense, bro. Like, yeah, it's just taking dudes off the board. See, that's why I don't mind that public versus PFF board stuff. Because I feel like the public board is the PFF board. It feels like they just move it based on what the public thinks. So I don't think there is a public versus PFF. I think the PFF board is their public board, which I don't know what's going on over there. I'm going to be honest. No hate for it. I do love using it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, but you do get some goofiness. And I'm not saying the goofiness ain't possible. You know what I mean? But there's also like, yo, positionally, that doesn't make any sense. There is some of that. That doesn't make any sense. If the Jags learned anything, don't overthink it. Mason Graham at 5. I think we did about 4 or 5 mocks. At least 80% of those we've taken Mason Graham to him. I know every time I've had him before this, I've taken Mason Graham for him. I love Mason Graham, and I think that'd be an awesome pick for them. They need some inside help. Big time, in my opinion, so I think it'd be great for him. That said, though, I would take Jalen Walker over Mason Graham. That also said, though, where are we at time-wise here? I like Michael better, personally. Michael's a dog, too, man. Michael's a dog. Michael went pretty high on this, too, I think. Oh, I took Michael. I drafted both of them. Hold up. I think I drafted both of them. What'd I take him at? I took him at I think I took him with Atlanta at 15. That's what I did. I took him at 15 with Atlanta. Man said Savion Williams. Savion Williams is talented. Former quarterback to wide receiver. I forgot that was the thing. I'm glad I'm looking at these notes here. Forgot he did that. 6'4", 220. He was fun watch, though. He's a fun watch, though. Contact balance, dynamic footwork. You'd see it on the sideline. He was explosive in his transitions. Like, Duke go to work when the ball gets hands. I remember them running a lot of, like, games with him. Like, just try to find ways to get him the football. As a route runner, though, like, I had a lot of issues with him. Like I didn't think he played with a consistent tempo. His pace was inconsistent as a route runner. His level 1 routes, the pace was a problem. He didn't really separate level 1 for me. Could use his hands a little bit more off the line of scrimmage. I think that's always kind of a polished type of detail there. I did like some like little things like where he would press vertical routes a little bit so you kind of get himself open. But I had a lot of issues with him just as a route runner. Tiptoes to the top of his routes, beats the drum a ton to curl off routes, snap them off, less fluid. He kind of counts his steps. I had a lot of issues as a route runner, but I did like watching Savion. Savion could be a lot of fun. You might have to just be kind of creative with him, though. Like it's, bring him in the league, be kind of creative with how we give him the ball to get him going. That's always the danger with the receiver, but I don't know. Whoever drafts him probably think. He does block, though. He'll block, so that's good. He lands some connections, so he'll help you there. You throw some screens his way. Can you do a mock with trading up with Green Bay in a second and draft an Alabama player? An Alabama player in a second? You got your eyes on someone, Bobo, and I don't know who you're talking about. Do I know who you're talking about? Maybe I do. Hold up. Alabama player in a second. And they're trading up with Green Bay. Green Bay, they can't pick that much further ahead of us. They got to be a few spots ahead of us. Let me see. Green Bay. And take an Alabama player. That's super specific, my guy. You got someone in mind. Let me see. Green Bay. They pick at 54. Yeah, that's not that big of a jump. Heart of a plumber and a mind of a doctor. Mind of a doctor. Shoot, I've never heard that before. Is that like a saying? Is that like things people say? I'm gonna be honest. I don't know who you're talking about. Brian Branch playback. Oh, okay. Okay. That I do get down with. I'm with that. I'm with doing that. If we can make that happen. Who would be in the second round that we could get from Alabama? I think Alabama doesn't have to make dudes this year. Maybe Tyler Booker. Let us go trade up and get Tyler Booker in the second round. If he wants to fall, I'm on board with that. Or it'd be the quarterback. It'd be Milroe. I don't know who else it would be. That's the only two that really come to mind that high. I don't think Hugh Robinson would go that high. That's interesting. It's real interesting, man. They added a few names on here, though. I do like that. Like the tight end position got a little bit stronger on PFF. They added Thomas Fedone finally. I think they just added him, which is good. They got Tyler Shuck on here. They have ranked really low, but he's on here. I don't know if he's always been on here. They added a dude from Georgia. They've moved Ty Robinson up a little bit. Conyers is on here. I feel like he got moved up because I feel like he's always been on here, but he was super low. I think they've done a little bit with this. They got some later guys in here now. A couple of Arkansas players. Yeah. Okay. Let's see him. Out of Booker, Donovan, and Zabel, which one falls out of the first? Donovan probably. Here's the thing, though. Here's why Booker could. Booker could because I think a certain team needs to take him. And I think it can be difficult to plug a guard to a certain team. I think if that makes sense. Like, I think plugging a guard that isn't the most scheme versatile is a little bit difficult in the first round. If it's a tackle, it's easy. If it's a guard, it's a little bit tougher. Because you need a team that needs a guard. Maybe like Houston or something. Like, that could work. Donovan could kind of play anywhere, I think. I think he could legitimately play anywhere. Is just going to be the teams feel like he's worth that draft pick. I think that he is, but will teams feel that way? I don't know. Zabel, to me, teams will probably feel that he's worth the pick. He's done everything right. He dominated the Senior Bowl. I would also keep in mind, and I'm trying to look for trends, guys that dominate the Senior Bowl that I'm kind of like on their film. I feel like those guys don't connect as often. Now, that could just be the examples that I looked at. But guys that were like, man, I remember loving him at the Senior Bowl. Like, it doesn't seem to work out. Like, I remember if that's my first impression, and then I watch him, and maybe that sways me up. I'm like, I kind of really like him because remember what he did there? I feel like it doesn't hit. You know, I think about Tennessee's receiver from Chicago. Maybe that's just because Chicago. He didn't work. There was another one I was thinking of yesterday. I don't remember who he was. But it doesn't, like, I really want to stick to my gut there. So as much as I liked him at the Senior Bowl, I like Zabel. I'm just not as high as the other two with the other two. That's why I'm at 3. So I wouldn't take Zabel round 1, but I think he's got so many more suitors because like you could just, if you need an interior lineman, just draft him. If you want a center, draft him. I think if you need a center, you should just draft him. You know, if you want a center round 1, which we typically get centers going round 1, draft him. What do you predict the 49ers do in the draft? Best guy available. Well, they have, and I heard today they had like the 5th most value based on all their draft picks. They need to do something that's not horrible because that's what they've done in the draft is draft horribly. I would say get back to kind of the roots, right? Like get back to O-line, D-line, get back to the roots. Now, they haven't always hit there. They've hit there when they had high draft picks. When the Nick Bosa thing popped up, they hit there. They haven't always hit there. I would say get back to that. I would say start with the trenches, and then they need to get athletic again. And I would say just get rangy dudes. Get rangy dudes, man. You know, get ball skills guys in the back end, guys that'll take the football away. If that's Will Johnson early, that's smart, plays off coverage, draft that guy. If they feel like Xavier Watts, someone that's ball hawking in the back end, take that guy. Like something like that. I would go playmakers, like guys that take the football away from him, and I would go trenches. That's how I think they got to get this thing going again, because I think they have to have that as their identity. Otherwise, all the fun doesn't come together. So I think that's what Niners have to do. They have enough picks to do it. That's the route that I would go for him. I wouldn't be against moving around for him either. That's exactly what I would do. Pulling on D lineman when the guys felt in them. I mean, and that's like they've been horrible at drafting. Like that's what I would look at, right? Because they got to pick right now where they could go get an offensive lineman or a defense lineman, one of the top ones in the draft. So do that, you know. If you want to move around to do it, do it. And beyond that, bro, go get some playmakers. Get some dudes that are going to take the ball away. If you don't want to go around one, I think Will Johnson would be a good pick for him. Get someone that's going to take the ball away, get good at corner. That's kind of been up and down. They lose Ward. I think they could use both those things. Oh, snap. Easy to send me something. Hold up. Diamond Jackson at guard would be nice. Yeah, I think that's what he's going to be. Wyatt Millum West. Wait, is Wyatt Millum's full name Wyatt Millum West? Actually, I had no idea. I never knew that. Is that a thing? No way. Hold up. Yo, I don't know if he posted this or not, but I feel like I've never heard that. It's got to be true. I mean, hopefully he didn't just put that in there. I've never heard that, though. What the heck? He got a third name. When did dude get a third name? I don't know. I thought he was going to post. I don't know. He might post that. Maybe that's what it will be. I was hoping he put all 10 on there. He tried to make a graphic for my offensive line rankings. I hope he put all 10 on there, man. He put 4 on there, which is cool. You know what I mean? It's cool. It's cool. You know what I mean? He's cool looking, but like, dang, dog, you could put 10 on there. You put 10 on there, shake it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Tell me there's no reason to take Igbuka if he falls to 28. There's no reason to take him? To not take him? Tell me there's no reason to take. I don't know what you mean by that. I think Igbuka's got the best hands in the draft. I think he's going to work at the NFL. I think he's going to be productive in the NFL. I don't love him as a route runner. He's got a really good feel for finding space. You know, he works against zone well. I don't think he's that savvy. His route running is good to me. He's a little bit good after the catch too. Like, yeah, grade wise here, he'd be worth a first round pick. I wouldn't have a problem with taking him. I wouldn't have a problem. We were kind of like teasing at one of those drafts with Easy. I was like, oh, I'll just take Igbuka. We didn't do it. But I didn't know he had a little bit of juice after the catch. I didn't know that was part of his game. I was like, oh, there's actually, he does some work here. And they actually do it a lot. They get in the ball a lot to do work after the catch, which I didn't know was such a big part of his game, but it is. So I like Igbuka. Does he get there? Maybe. I don't think so. Honestly, I feel like at this point with Ohio State receivers, like, bro, they're just not going to fall. I don't think they should. If you're drafting an Ohio State receiver, you're getting a good receiver. It feels like those are like one of the least like if you draft an Ohio State receiver, you can pretty much bank on the guy's going to get 1,000 yards. Like that feels just like where it's at. Like, yeah, just, don't worry about it. He's going to get 1,000 yards receiving. Draft him. You know, don't overthink it. All right, I might not think, all right, that he's the most savvy route runner, but the dude's going to get 1,000 yards. It's like, okay, draft that guy. So I do like him. If Jerry Jones hasn't completely gone senile, oh dang, then the Cowboys, same thing. Big player available. I think it makes sense. I don't know that they're going to feel that the board lines up, though. I think there's a chance that they don't feel like the player's there for him. Like, because Membu's going to get pushed up. And if Membu gets pushed up, Will Campbell's off the board. I think it's going to make it potentially difficult for them to take a lineman. Because I don't know who they're going to view as the next lineman. Like, teams like Banks, I like him, don't love him. I like him. Some teams think he's a guard. He's a good athlete, though. He's a really good athlete. You're betting on upside there, you know, but it's not like all polished up right now. I think Banks is a good player. I think he's really versatile. It's just, I don't know how teams are going to be on him. He was my tackle 1 at one point, so maybe they'd feel that. I think that'd be one of the safer ones. But beyond that, like, I don't know if they'd have a guy that they would feel like makes sense there. So I don't know that they'll do it, man. I don't know if they will. But I hear you. I mean, that's when the Cowboys are good, because their O-line's good. Unless you're cursed with Olave. Yeah, that is true. He just has it. You can tell he's different. They're all different, bro, to be honest. Like, all those Ohio State dudes are different. You think he has an it factor? I'll tell you this. What did I have? Did I have a final word on him? I didn't have a final word on him. I'll tell you this, though, man. Having him listed with great play speed does say a lot. It does say a lot, because for me, I think he tested out pretty well. But like for him to show great play speed, I don't give that out a lot. I just think like there's certain routes he's not going to run incredibly well. But he also runs a very deep route tree. And I think the juice after the catch separates him a little bit. But he's so good. He's such a good pass catcher. Like I would trust him so much. I mean, he's gonna I get the St. Brown bribes in the sense that like I feel like I'm gonna throw it to him and he's gonna come down with it all the time. Like you're gonna feel like he never drops the football. So I do feel that. Would you trade JMO for a second and a future second? Or and 2 future third rounders? Oh boy. See, I don't know. Y'all can't do me like this. I don't know how to answer that question, bro. Like, no. I'd say no, bro, because like I'm trying to win a Super Bowl, dog. You know what I mean? I don't want to get rid of that guy. Like, I want to win a Super Bowl, and I think he can help us get there. I feel like we have a connection with JMO, bro. He's been through it. He's responded. That value's crazy, though. Man. It'd be hard to pass on that, but no, I think I'd say no. Kyle Williams and Higgins has it for you. Higgins could be nice. Higgins scares me a little bit, though. He scares me at the top of the route. But he gets himself open, man. He's tough. If the Lions draft someone in the trenches, O-line, D-line, I won't be mad. No, I mean, that's probably what they'll do. I think that's the most likely thing that's going to happen at the top. But we actually just did a thing, the truth. I don't know. I think you just joined, maybe. We went through DeMarcus Walker at the beginning, and then we talked about needs. I think we had a nice little conversation about, like, the type of pass rusher it has to be kind of thing. I think it was a good little thing that we talked about. So definitely, you should definitely check that thing out. JMO could be our new TJ Hawkinson. That is true. No, he could be. I don't love this draft to replace Jameson Williams. That's the problem too. You know what I mean? Like if I got a second rounder, I don't love this draft trying to find my next JMO. I'm definitely gonna have to just be like, all right, we're just living without him. We'll draft somebody, but he's not gonna be him. Yeah. You think it'd be easier to trade up or down? That's a good question. Probably down. Because I think there's so many tight players that like teams are gonna be like, we can't risk losing him. Where it's like you're just taking your guy. And I think because of that, teams will probably want to just stay and pick. I think when you get a lot of tight players, teams want to stay and pick just to make sure they get their guy. They're not risking like, yo, if I move, am I going to miss him? If I move out of here, teams might be more aggressive to move up because they're just not sure like how tight everybody else is and like where they actually feel like guys are going to stack up and how predictable it's going to be. So I think it'll be easier to move up, or I guess it'd be then difficult to move down, but I think it would be easier to move down because the team would be willing to jump. A team would be willing to go get somebody. That'd be my thoughts. Been here for a bit, come back in an hour. Okay, you were on an hour walk. Okay, I see you. An hour walk? Is that like an exercise thing? You just walking a lot. A second and 2/3. I don't know. It's a lot, man. That's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. If they really got that offer and they accepted it, I wouldn't hate them for it. But we'd have like 3/3 next year. I mean, we'd have 4/3 next year. If we pulled that trade off, we'd have 4/3. We'd have the comp, the third we have, and then those 2/3. We'd have 4 third-round picks. That's a lot, bro. That's a lot, man. Trying to recover from a back injury. Oh, man. I'm sorry to hear that. Stupid injuries, bro. And then you got to like do stuff to make them better. It's whack. Injuries are whack. All right, chat. I think we're going to leave it there. Working on that edge rankings. Hopefully that comes out kind of soon. We'll see, I guess. It should, at worst, it's going to be out Friday. It's tough on Thursdays because I have to jump into schoolwork a lot, so it kind of throws me off a little bit. But we're gonna get it out there. We're gonna get it out there, and that'll be the next ranking thing we have. And it shouldn't take that long. I don't know how deep we're gonna go, which is the question. But I think everybody that I've seen you guys bring up, Diggs, you guys have brought up Robinson, you guys have we talked about the Central Arkansas kid. We'll have him in there. Like, I don't know how far I'm gonna go on the edge rusher thing because there's so many guys, but probably anybody that we've actually talked about, they'll probably be on that list. Except for Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker may not make the list. Johnny Walker may not make the list. I'm like, I don't want to hear that, bro. When I put Johnny Walker at the bottom, I'm gonna get cooked. I don't know if I want that smoke. I'm gonna be honest. I may just want to avoid that. Friday it is. Hopefully before Friday. Hopefully. I would not trade J-Mo. You can't teach speed like that. I had so here's a little side thing. One of our there's a group of us, and they're talking about the draft, not doing content, just a group of us. And it was a Cowboys fan. I don't remember who the other guy's fan is. It was a Cowboys fan. And he just randomly got on a conversation. He wanted a receiver this year for the Cowboys. So he was like, we walk away with Ted McMillan, that kind of thing. And somehow it got to Jameson Williams. And they were just hyping up J-Mo. Like, man, J-Mo's so fast. And then he looks at me, he's like, yo, you should just trade us Jameson Williams. Can't do that, dog. So I think the outside perspective, if people want to know what people think about J-Mo, people think he's crazy. People think he's crazy, bro. They're talking about him back at Bama. So it's like, I think he'd have a ton of value, bro. I think he'd have a ton. But also, Tyreek Hill might get traded, so that could hurt his market. J-Mo for the 12th pick? I mean, I think about it. But I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. Because here's where this is a problem. If you traded him for the 12th pick, say he moved to the 12 and he took a receiver, you'd be like, dang, I feel like we downgraded. Like, that's real, bro. You'd probably feel like you downgraded. You'd be like, ooh, may have gotten worse. At wide receiver. Like, that's where I struggle with it. All right, chat, we're going to get out of here, man. I appreciate y'all joining. I'll see you guys soon. You want to hit me up on @0dosofdion. I'm out. Have a great night.